My beloved child. Listen carefully, because this message did not reach you by accident, and the timing of these words is far more precise than you realize. Someone you have been thinking about, someone whose silence confused you, someone whose distance made you question your own worth, misses you deeply, but not in the way you imagine. They miss the version of themselves they were when you were close, they miss the peace they felt when your presence made the world quieter, and they miss the certainty they once had before fear entered their heart. Every night, when distractions fade and the noise of the world finally slows down, your name appears in their thoughts without permission. They replay moments, conversations, and unspoken feelings, not because they want to suffer, but because their heart refuses to forget what felt real. What you must understand is this. Missing you is not their problem. What is about to happen because of those feelings is where everything changes. Something has been building silently behind the scenes, something they did not plan, something even you did not see coming, and once it begins to unfold, the truth will surprise you in ways that shake old assumptions and rewrite what you thought was already finished. Pay close attention now, because the signs were always there, even when you felt ignored. The pauses between messages, the unfinished sentences, the sudden changes in behavior, none of it was random. While you believed they were moving on, they were actually struggling with a decision that terrified them. Their heart kept pulling them toward you, while their mind warned them about consequences, opinions, and past mistakes. This inner conflict created a storm they could not escape. They tried to distract themselves with routines, responsibilities, and other people, but nothing truly replaced what they felt with you. What you don't see is that recently, something happened that forced them to confront the truth they were avoiding. A conversation they overheard, a moment of loss, or a realization that time does not wait for anyone shook them awake. In that moment, they understood that missing you was no longer something they could quietly live with. It became a signal, a warning, and a push toward an action they never thought they would take. This is where the surprise begins, because their next move is not emotional chaos. It is calculated, intentional, and deeply connected to you. Stay with me, because what unfolds next carries weight. They have been watching from a distance, noticing how you changed, how you became stronger, calmer, and less available to confusion. This shift unsettled them more than your absence ever did. When you stopped chasing clarity, when you chose peace over explanations, something inside them cracked. They realized they no longer had unlimited access to your energy, your time, or your emotional availability. That realization triggered a fear they could not ignore. The fear was not of losing you emotionally, but of losing the chance to ever be understood by you again. They know that once you fully detach, there may be no doorway left for them to explain their silence, their hesitation, or their past choices. This fear is now driving them toward a moment of truth, a moment where they will either step forward with honesty or live forever with regret. And what shocks most people is this. They are closer to choosing honesty than they have ever been before. Understand this clearly, because it changes how you see everything. They are not preparing to return with excuses. They are preparing to return with clarity. For a long time, they believed silence was safer than vulnerability. Now they realize silence cost them more than speaking ever could. They miss you, yes, but more importantly, they miss the connection that forced them to be real. Recently, They started rehearsing conversations in their mind, not dramatic speeches, but simple, honest words they were once too afraid to say. Words that admit confusion. Words that admit fear. Words that admit they handle things poorly. This internal shift is rare, and it does not happen without pressure from life itself. Something in their world is changing, and it made them realize that unresolved connections follow you, no matter how far you run. When they finally act, it will not look like a dramatic gesture. It will look subtle, calm, and unexpectedly sincere. That is why it will surprise you. Here is the part most people never consider, and this is important for you to hear. The surprise is not only about what they will do, but about how you will feel when it happens. You may expect satisfaction, closure, or even emotional relief, but what arrives instead is clarity. You will see them clearly for the first time, without longing, without fantasy, without emotional fog. And in that clarity, you will recognize how much you have grown. Whether they step forward or hesitate at the last moment, the power dynamic has already shifted. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You are standing in a position where truth meets you on your terms. This is why this moment matters. Not because they miss you, but because what happens next places you in control of how the story continues. And this is only the beginning of what is about to unfold. There is something you must understand now, and it changes the meaning of everything that came before. The moment they realized you were no longer emotionally waiting, a quiet urgency entered their life. It was not panic, and it was not desperation. It was the heavy awareness that time had shifted sides. For the first time, they sensed that the window they once controlled was no longer open by default. You had stopped reacting. You had stopped explaining. You had stopped offering emotional access without certainty. This silence from you did something powerful. It forced them to sit alone with their own thoughts, without your reassurance softening the truth. In that space, they finally acknowledged what they lost when they chose comfort over courage. Missing you transformed into something sharper. It became accountability. And accountability always leads to a moment where action is unavoidable. What is happening behind the scenes now is not visible on the surface, but it is intense. They are questioning past decisions with a clarity that did not exist before. They are revisiting moments where honesty would have changed everything. They are recognizing how fear disguised itself as logic, and how delay slowly became damage. This realization did not come gently. It arrived through pressure. Pressure from life reminding them that unresolved connections do not disappear, they wait. They are noticing patterns repeating in their life, and each repetition carries your shadow. Every conversation that lacks depth reminds them of what they once had with you. Every shallow connection highlights what was real. This contrast is unbearable for someone who knows they settled for less than truth. That is why something is about to shift. Not because they suddenly became brave, but because staying silent now feels heavier than speaking. Here is where the story becomes surprising. They are not approaching you from weakness. They are approaching you from awareness. They finally see that control was never power, and distance was never protection. The power was always in honesty, and they avoided it until avoidance became impossible. They are preparing for a moment that will test their pride, their ego, and their image. They know that once they speak, they cannot hide behind ambiguity again. This is why they have waited. This is why the timing feels strange. But timing is never random when growth is involved. Something in their life made them realize that pretending indifference is exhausting, and living without truth creates a hollow victory. They are standing at the edge of a decision that will expose their real intentions, and whether they act or pause one more time will reveal everything you need to know. You must also be aware of what is happening within you, because this is equally important. You are no longer the person they left behind. You have learned to sit with uncertainty without breaking. You have learned that your value does not decrease because someone hesitated to recognize it. You no longer need explanations to validate your experience. This inner stability changes how their next move will land. What once would have shaken you now meets calm awareness. You will notice things you would have ignored before. The tone of their words. The timing of their message. The intention behind their honesty. This is where the surprise deepens. Because the moment they finally show up with clarity, you will realize that you no longer need them to complete a chapter you already finished within yourself. And that realization is powerful. This part of the journey is not about reunion or distance. It is about truth arriving without force. Whatever they choose to do next will no longer define you. It will simply reveal them. And that is the shift that changes everything. When they step forward, if they do, it will not place you back in uncertainty. It will offer you information. Information gives you choice. Choice gives you peace. This is why this moment is unfolding now and not before. You had to become steady enough to receive truth without losing yourself in it. And as this story continues to unfold, you will see clearly that what surprises you most is not what they say or do, but how unshaken you remain when it finally happens. There is a moment approaching that feels quiet from the outside, yet it carries enormous weight beneath the surface. This is the moment where intentions become visible without words being spoken. You may sense it as a shift in energy, a subtle pull, or an unexpected calm that arrives without explanation. While nothing dramatic appears to be happening, something is aligning in ways that cannot be rushed or reversed. They are standing at a crossroads where pretending no longer works, and you are standing in a place where clarity no longer frightens you. This intersection is rare. It happens only when one person learns to let go without bitterness, and the other learns to face the truth without hiding. That is why this moment feels different from anything before. The surprise is not sudden chaos. The surprise is the stillness that comes right before truth speaks. Behind their silence, preparation continues. They are not planning how to impress you. They are planning how to be honest without losing themselves. This distinction matters more than you know. In the past, they feared that honesty would cost them comfort, stability, or approval. Now they understand that avoiding honesty already cost them something far greater. They have replayed your last meaningful interaction countless times, noticing what they failed to say and what you quietly carried alone. That awareness sits heavy with them now. It is reshaping how they see connection, responsibility, and emotional maturity. What changed recently is not their feelings. What changed is their understanding of consequences. They finally recognize that silence communicates just as loudly as words, and distance always sends a message, whether intended or not. This realization is preparing them for a move that will feel small on the surface, but carries depth beneath it. At the same time, something profound is happening within you. You are no longer scanning for signs or decoding mixed signals. Your nervous system has learned that peace does not require answers from someone else. This internal shift alters everything. When you are no longer emotionally searching, you begin to observe instead. Observation brings clarity. Clarity dissolves illusion. This is why the next interaction, or even the absence of one, will reveal more than months of confusion ever did. You will notice how aligned their words are with their actions. You will feel whether their presence brings calm or uncertainty. And most importantly, you will recognize that your worth no longer fluctuates based on their ability to show up. This grounded state is what allows the truth to arrive without overwhelming you. The surprise you are heading toward is layered. It is not just about what they express, but about what you finally understand. You will see that missing you forced them to confront parts of themselves they avoided for years. It stripped away excuses and exposed patterns. Yet you will also see that growth, when delayed too long, does not always guarantee timing. This awareness does not bring sadness. It brings respect for your own journey. You will realize that love without consistency is not something you need to negotiate with anymore. Whether they step forward fully or hesitate at the edge, you will not chase clarity. You will receive it calmly. That alone changes the entire outcome. As this chapter continues to unfold, remember this truth. The power was never in being missed. The power was in becoming someone who no longer waits to be chosen. Whatever happens next will not destabilize you. It will inform you. And information is freedom. You are entering a phase where surprises do not shock you, they clarify you. And clarity, once gained, cannot be taken away. This is why what happens next matters. Not because it reopens the past, but because it confirms how far you have already come. There is a quiet realization settling into place now, one that changes how you interpret everything that follows. You are beginning to understand that not every connection is meant to return in the same form it once existed. Some return as truth. Some return as lessons. And some return only to confirm that you no longer belong in the past you outgrew. This awareness creates a calm strength within you, a strength that does not demand outcomes. While they continue navigating their inner conflict, you are no longer emotionally pacing the same ground. You have stepped into a position where your peace is not dependent on their readiness. This shift is subtle, but it is the reason the next development will feel surprising rather than destabilizing. When you are no longer attached to a specific result, everything that happens becomes clearer. What you may not realize is that they sense this change in you as well. Distance did not push them away. Your emotional independence did. They feel it in the way conversations no longer circle around uncertainty. They feel it in the way you no longer seek reassurance. This unfamiliar dynamic has forced them to confront a truth they avoided. They no longer have the comfort of your patience without effort. They know that if they approach you now, they must do so with intention, not confusion. This is creating hesitation, not because they lack feeling, but because they finally understand the weight of showing up without games. That understanding is heavy for someone who once relied on ambiguity. Yet it is also the reason their next step, if taken, will be genuine rather than impulsive. You are also entering a phase where intuition becomes sharper. You are not imagining this clarity. You are sensing alignment within yourself. When truth approaches, the body often knows before the mind catches up. You may feel less reactive, less anxious, and more observant. This calm is not indifference. It is integration. You have processed what needed to be felt. You no longer need dramatic closure because your nervous system is no longer in survival mode. This is why whatever message arrives, or even if silence continues, it will not unsettle you. You will understand it. And understanding brings peace, even when outcomes are not what we once hoped for. The surprise unfolding is not dramatic movement from them. It is the internal confirmation within you. You will realize that the version of yourself who once waited, wondered, and questioned is no longer present. That chapter has closed quietly, without announcement. If they speak now, you will hear them clearly. If they do not, you will still move forward with certainty. This balance is powerful. It means you are no longer reacting to life. You are responding to it. And that changes the direction of every connection that follows. As this story continues, remember this. The purpose of being missed was never to pull you back. It was to reveal your growth. Whatever they choose next will not define your worth or your future. You are standing in a place where truth meets stability. And when surprise arrives, it will not feel like shock. It will feel like recognition. There is a final layer of this unfolding that you are now ready to see, and it carries a different kind of weight. What is about to happen is not driven by urgency or emotion alone. It is guided by timing that aligns with who you have become. They are reaching a point where avoidance no longer protects them from their own thoughts. The quiet moments have grown louder. The questions they pushed away are returning with clarity. They are realizing that missing you was never about loneliness. It was about recognition. You represented a version of connection that required honesty, presence, and emotional responsibility. Walking away from that did not simplify their life. It complicated it. And now, life is asking them to respond rather than escape. If they choose to step forward, it will come in a way you do not expect. Not with dramatic words or emotional intensity, but with simplicity. Simplicity is often the clearest sign of truth. They will not try to convince you of their growth. They will show it through steadiness, through consistency, and through respect for your boundaries. And here is the part that surprises most people. You will not rush to meet them where they stand. You will observe. You will listen. You will allow their actions to speak without filling the silence for them. This restraint is not distance. It is discernment. And discernment changes the outcome of every interaction. At the same time, you must understand that silence from them is also information. If they hesitate again, if they choose comfort over courage one more time, you will not internalize it as rejection. You will recognize it as alignment revealing itself. There is strength in knowing that not every door needs to reopen. Some close to protect the version of you that now exists. This realization does not bring bitterness. It brings respect for your own journey. You no longer seek validation from someone who is still learning how to stand in truth. That shift is the real surprise of this story. What makes this moment once in a lifetime is not their choice. It is yours. You are standing at a point where you trust yourself more than outcomes. Whether they return with honesty or remain silent, you will not lose your balance. You have learned that peace is not found in explanations, but in alignment. This awareness changes how love enters your life moving forward. It ensures that future connections meet you at the level of clarity you now hold. That is growth. That is strength. And that is why this moment matters more than any confession ever could. As this chapter closes, understand this clearly. They may miss you, but you no longer need to be missed to feel complete. You have moved beyond the stage of waiting to be chosen. You are choosing yourself, your peace, and your truth. Whatever happens next will not surprise you by shaking your world. It will surprise you by confirming how steady you have become. There is a deeper realization settling in now, one that feels less like a thought and more like an internal knowing. You are beginning to see that the story was never about whether they would come back or stay away. It was about whether you would remain anchored in your own clarity when the moment arrived. This stage is quiet, powerful, and often misunderstood. From the outside, it may look like nothing is happening. Inside you, everything has already shifted. You no longer feel the urge to anticipate their next move. You are no longer emotionally rehearsing conversations that may never happen. This calm is not emptiness. It is completion. And completion is what allows the final truth to surface without distortion. They, on the other hand, are feeling the weight of this completion even if they cannot name it. They sense that the dynamic has changed permanently. The energy they once relied on is no longer available in the same way. This realization is unsettling for someone who delayed honesty. They now understand that timing is not infinite, and opportunities do not wait forever. This awareness is pushing them toward a moment of decision that cannot be postponed much longer. Not because you are pressuring them, but because life itself is. When unresolved emotions collide with personal growth, something has to give. Either truth is spoken, or silence becomes a permanent choice. And both outcomes carry consequences they can no longer avoid. What is important for you to recognize is this. Whatever choice they make, it will arrive when you are no longer attached to controlling the outcome. That is why it will not disrupt you. If they step forward, you will receive their words without urgency. If they remain silent, you will not fill the gaps with assumptions. This neutrality is not emotional coldness. It is emotional mastery. You have learned that clarity does not need to be forced. It reveals itself naturally when you stop chasing it. This is the level of growth that changes the direction of your life quietly, without spectacle. There is also something else unfolding that deserves your attention. As you stabilize in this clarity, new alignments begin forming around you. People, opportunities, and conversations start matching the version of you that no longer tolerates confusion. This is not coincidence. This is response. Life responds to self-respect faster than it responds to longing. The moment you stopped waiting for validation, you created space for connections that meet you with presence and intention. This is why whatever happens next with them will feel smaller than you once imagined. Not because it lacks meaning, but because your world has expanded beyond one unresolved chapter. As this part of the journey settles, remember this truth. Closure does not always come from answers. Sometimes it comes from strength. You are standing in that strength now. Whether they speak or remain silent, the outcome no longer holds power over your emotional state. You are steady. You are aware. You are complete within yourself. And that is the final surprise most people never expect.